Begin Self-Publishing, episode number 3. The World Apart from Amazon.
Interested in self-publishing but don't know where to start? Want to get your book onto Amazon? Want to hold your paperback book in your hands? Learn how on the Begin Self-Publishing podcast with your host, Tim Lewis.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of Begin Self-Publishing. In this episode we talk about the rest of the ebook stores apart from Amazon. It's interesting when you look at trying to teach a subject that you realise just how little you know about the options available. And I have to say, in researching this show, I've discovered that there are actually far more ebook distribution sites than I ever considered. From a personal perspective, I've used 3 platforms directly apart from Amazon, which is Kobo, Apple and Nook. I haven't published directly to any other platforms apart from those 3. Kobo has probably a larger international presence than any of the rest, with the possible exception of Apple. It's possible to sell books through Kobo in all sorts of obscure places, in Africa, Asia and primarily Canada being their biggest market. Kobo are a bigger seller of ebooks in Canada than Amazon. The other advantage to Kobo is that their Kobo Writing Direct Live interface is probably the easiest to use of any of the ebook uploading procedures. Apple clearly are a big player because they have now distributed their ebook reading software, iBookstore, onto every single Apple device by default. Nook is the electronic arm of Barnes & Noble. All 3 of these companies, in some way or other, sell their own hardware device for reading ebooks, though, like with Kindle, you can read all of their books on other devices. For example, there is both a Kobo and a Nook iPhone app where you can read books from their bookstores on your iPhone. Another notable ebook store, which I've never published with, is Google. You can actually submit books to the Google Play Store. In general, I've avoided this because what I've heard is that the issue with Google is that they have a habit of discounting the books they have in the ebook store, which is then picked up by the other stores, reducing your royalties, or, like with Amazon, moving you out of the 70% bracket into a different bracket. So I've always avoided Google, though I know that some people have had success selling books on the Google Bookstore. Recently I've started to look at the book aggregator services. These are services you submit one file to and they will send it to multiple online publishers. In my mind there seem to be only 2 that stand out as reasonable candidates for using. These are Smashwords and Draft2Digital. Personally, I've not used Smashwords. Both of these services take a cut of your royalties. There is an argument that possibly you should submit to both of them, because Draft2Digital, while being easy to use and providing the option to upload the ebook it's created from your Word file back onto your own machine and then send to other publishers, does not have the scope of Smashwords. Draft2Digital can submit books to Kobo, Apple, Nook, Tolino, Scribd. However, Smashwords has even more outreach. Includes most of those plus a few others, including a big one which is Flipkart, which is the biggest online retailer of ebooks in India. Smashwords also has its own store. Smashwords also allows you to distribute to Oyster and Overdrive and Baker and Taylor, who will give you access to have your ebook listed in libraries. This doesn't mean it will automatically be listed in library, but is available for people in libraries to pick it up as a book that can be distributed as an ebook from a library. There's always a vast amount of difference between what is a capability and what's a reality when it comes to self-publishing. Having a book available as a paperback on CreateSpace means that it is possible for a bookstore to order it. It does not mean that it's likely that it will be picked up and stocked by a bookstore without any intervention. There is some debate about whether you should go direct to retailers or whether you should use an aggregator like Drafted Digital or Smashwords. My feeling is that you should use the tools appropriately to the task you want. For convenience, you may want to just use something like Smashwords and Amazon. I know that many people sign up for the KDP Select scheme because they don't want to sign up to multiple retailers or have multiple interfaces, so they just stay exclusive to Amazon. But I think if you wanted a simple publishing experience, if you didn't want to have to be limited just to Amazon, then logging on to Smashwords and onto Amazon may make sense. Smashwords have, for good or for bad, had a reputation in the past for being slow to accept changes in a way that Drafted Digital doesn't seem to have done. I'm not sure whether this is true. I've never published on Smashwords myself. I'm probably going to because I did not appreciate myself that the number of retailers that they could actually submit books to. So I think that from a purely pragmatic point of view, the best suggestion would be to use Drafted Digital and Smashwords and the Amazon store, and possibly go direct to Kobo. Kobo gives advantages both in terms of paying more royalties and for how they promote your books if you go direct to it with them. For Nook, it's almost worth not going through the Nook direct approach. You get more capability to do stuff through the aggregators. For example, you can set a book for free on Drafted Digital on Nook, but you can't set a book for free on Nook directly. Apparently this is because Drafted Digital uses a publisher's interface to the Nook system, where their self-publishing interface is a poor relation. Apple is a difficult case. Again, Apple is probably going to give priority to books that are directly submitted to them via their own interface. However, you need a Mac before you can actually submit a book to the iBook store. This goes with Apple's general we don't take stuff from anywhere else point of view. So unlike every other ebook store, Apple has a program that you need to run on a Mac before you can actually submit your book to the iBook store. It's not particularly difficult to use, and it's certainly improved massively in recent years. It was very, very much a poor relation previously. But now it's fairly usable, but if you're not a Mac user and you don't own a Mac, you may want to go via Drafted Digital and give up the 10% of royalties. You'll need to cover the costs getting a new Mac machine just to use for iBook store. One issue you may encounter with Smashwords is that their entire system for publishing is devised mainly around encouraging you to upload a Word file, which they then convert into either PDF or EPUB formats themselves. They have allowed an option to allow you to upload an EPUB file, but they limit you in what you can do with this as opposed to uploading a Word document. And unlike Drafted Digital, you can't then download that EPUB file for submission anywhere else. According to the Smashwords site, they run what they call a meat grinder process on the Word doc file that you create to create the EPUB out of it. From the amount of time they've had going, I would guess they're very good at doing this. However, this is a bit of a problem if you've created it in a different program like Scrivener. I'm probably going to try out using Smashwords with an EPUB file myself in the next few weeks, so I'll let you know how I get on with that. My interest is mainly for Flipkart or an Oyster and Overdrive. I'll still keep submitting the other files via either Drafted Digital or directly. You can see that actually you can get into a bit of a Tower of Babel situation with the other retailers. But I think if you're available on a store anywhere, you never know when you're suddenly going to get a spike of sales. It's very easy to say, all the sales will be on Amazon. And that may well be true if all your marketing and all your other activities are based in the US. But most of us who use social media or other new media technologies, you will get followers and people interested in your books all over the world. So if you neglect the rest of the world outside the US and the UK, which is what you may well do if you rely purely on Amazon sales, you're letting a lot of your potential market for your books disappear. One of the prime reasons why I would suggest not going into the KDP Select scheme, which is the Amazon exclusive deal where you can't publish on any other platform, is that by publishing a book on a different platform, you get the option of setting it for free. Now, this may seem like a odd thing to want to do. Why would you want to set your book for free? Well, the reason why it's important is that if you've got a series of books and you want to be able to give one book away free to get readers into your series, or you've got a related series of books and you want people to understand your writing style, get people used to reading your books so that you can then get them to buy your other books, being able to set a book for free is an amazing ability. And while you can do a certain number of free days on the Amazon KDP Select scheme, you only get 5 days, and that's not enough time, in my opinion, to get people interested in your books. What I've done is set first book in the series free. The great thing is that Amazon can set books for free, but they don't let you do it through the KDP interface, unless you do it through the 5 free days you get in the 3-month period when you're in the KDP Select. However, Amazon does have this price matching concept. So if they see the same book available for a lower price, including free, on a different retailer, and the ones they mainly compare to are Barnes & Noble and Apple and Kobo, if they see it free on those other platforms, and somebody tips them off, probably you, then they will price match to free. So in effect, your book is then permanently free both on Amazon and on the other bookstores. This gives you a tremendous ability to get new readers who just have to pick up a free book. If they like it, they may buy your other books. Even more so if it's the first book in a series. So this is one of the main reasons why I don't go on the KDP Select scheme. It gives you the flexibility to set the books free. Now, I know that some people will set the first book free and then put the other books in the KDP Select scheme. But I think that's a little bit, I wouldn't say unethical, but it's a little bit unfair on people who pick up your book in the other markets and then can't read the rest of the books, can't give you their money. Like with all things in life, though, I'm sure there are situations where the advantages for being on KDP Select for particular authors in particular markets outweigh the costs. But to me, as a more internationally minded author, I don't think it's worth being exclusive to Amazon. I'd rather go wide than all in for Amazon. In a similar way to how I took you through submitting a book to the KDP store, I'll do the same with Draft2Digital. In fact, I believe that actually Draft2Digital is easier for submission than even the Kindle store. You have to go to the Draft2Digital website, which is http://draft, 2, and then digital.com. Then you need to register, which is reasonably easy. And once you've got to that point, you can select Add New Book. First thing you need to do is upload a book file. You can either upload a Word document, which Draft2Digital will convert into a EPUB file for you, or you can upload an EPUB file directly. As stated in the previous show, if you want a way to create a EPUB file out of a Word document, using Draft2Digital isn't necessarily a bad way of doing it. Then you'll be asked the title, which is the title of the book you're publishing, series, which is just the name of the series of books that this is a part of. If it's not part of a series, then obviously leave this blank. Volume number, it's the position of the book within the series of books that you're reading, so you can leave that blank if it's not part of the series. Description is what appears in the stores that Draft2Digital publishes to. Publisher is either your name or your company name. ISBN is the ISBN number if you purchased one. Don't need one though. The only slightly different thing to the Kindle publishing is the BZAC subjects. This is in effect the same as the subject categories that you'd see on Amazon. However, BZAC is more of an official publishing industry standard for subject classification for books. So you would select the subject your book is applicable to within that. Language would be English in most cases, unless you're publishing in a foreign language. Release date is the date that you actually release the book. If you've already published it on a different platform, you may want to change this to that date rather than the current date. Contributors allows you to specify your author name and any other relevant information. Maybe worth putting in illustrators if you've got a lot of illustrations in your book. And then the search term section can be used to add keywords. These will not get used to different categories like the KDP keywords will. However, they do allow you to put in terms that will appear when you search in particular retailers. That is the first tab on the Draft2Digital display. The Layout tab, which is the next tab, gives you the option to upload your cover image for the book. The Publishing option lets you select which retailers you want to publish your book on. This is Nook, Kobo, the iBookstore, which is Apple's store, Scribd, which is a subscription service, Page Foundry, which I've never heard of, but they seem to be ebook retailer, and Tolino, which is the biggest retailer in Germany. You'd be surprised how many English language books actually sell as ebooks in Germany. So don't ignore Tolino. Certainly if your book is a German language book, then you would definitely want to go through to Tolino. And I don't believe you can go directly. I think you have to go through either Draft2Digital or Smashwords. There is a paperback tab. You can select to actually publish a paperback. I think this is only possible if you've actually uploaded a Word file. I'm not sure I'd recommend it because the actual royalties on paperback books are pretty slim anyway. And Draft2Digital would take a cut of that. However, if you're just looking for a convenient one-stop solution for self-publishing to other stores and to self-publish a paperback, then Draft2Digital isn't a bad way to do it. I'll take you through in the next episode how I self-published a paperback myself using Word and the CreateSpace service directly.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please stop by iTunes and rate and leave a review. This helps make the show more visible. For free resources, show notes, and other helpful content, join the community at beginselfpublishing.com.